Hey gang, this is John Casale here with Triple Crown Baseball, and our guest today is Rodney Davis. He's been a scout that's been part of Don Reynolds' scouting group and has been working with us on some of our events, doing some scouting. So welcome, Rodney. Appreciate you joining us today.
Thank you, John.
It's great to have you. I'm sure you're real busy, so I'll get to some of these questions that we had for you, and we'll go from there. So tell us a little bit about baseball from Rodney Davis's standpoint, the way you got started, through high school, collegiately, and then professionally, and as it turned out, working your way into doing some scouting.
Sure. So I'm from the Long Beach, Compton area of Southern California. And at that time, baseball was a sport that was preeminent, with respect to kids participating. It was just something that most of the kids did. And so, I started playing when I was about 10 years old, which is a little later than most players starting today. But I started when I was 10 years old, and I didn't have success right away. It's a hard game, and and I was not what you would call a prodigy or successful player right away, but I loved it, and so I wanted to get better at it. I wanted to learn it. And, I began to, just try to find out what the disciplines of the game were and some of the stories. And I read a lot of books, and so I just fell in love with baseball. My father was a player, and I think that that's where the gene came from. After graduating from high school, I actually passed on an opportunity to play at the Division I level and went to a junior college, which at the time was prolific in terms of what it accomplished, Cerritos College. And I went there and played for a man named Wally Kincaid. Great man, great coach. It's one of the things that has marked my journey in the game is I've just been very fortunate to be around some really great baseball men, players, scouts, coaches that have rubbed off on me. And so none of this is organic in me. It's kind of come from outside of me and appropriated. After the junior college level, I went to Fresno State. I signed with Dodgers, had a short minor league career, and started coaching right away, and thought that was what I wanted to do. But the opportunity to scout came in the form of the Seattle Mariners in 1991. And because it was baseball, I knew that I would have interest in it. So I started scouting for Seattle. Man, what a great experience. I worked for a great man named Roger Youngward, met a lot of great men, and just grew as a professional. I started scouting when I was 30, and the length of my career in professional baseball was to age 55. And so, man, I had a 25-year run in professional baseball for a kid who was, man, when he was 10 or 11 years old, was just another kid at the park. And so, that's one of the things in this season of baseball that wasn't necessarily there in past seasons, is that guys got a chance to get better for a long time in life. And one of the reasons I'm enjoying doing this is encouraging young people to continue to really dig in, and find their way to their future. There's a lot of young people that it seems like, man, there's a scholarship for every kid out there. That's the mentality. And everyone wants to be a Division I player. But, I played junior college baseball. It was incredibly critical to my development not just as a man, as a player. And I went to Fresno State, and I played Division I baseball for one of the top 5 teams in the country at that time. But I also visited Division II schools, and I visited an NAIA school. So for me, it wasn't about aspiring to the Division I level. It was finding a place that was a good fit for me. And I was able to find that at Fresno State.
Nice. And that's the scouting thing, was that something that how did that come about from the standpoint of, was there a passion there that, hey, this is how I can continue to stay in the game?
Not really. I was a coach, and my intention was to be a coach for as long as I could. I had aspirations to be a Division I coach or a Division I head coach, which I was able to accomplish. But through softball, I coached a year of softball at UCLA and had a blast. Really, having 25 years in the game, the first 10 years, I was probably just a coach masquerading as a scout. I saw the game through the lens of a coach, but coaching and scouting is different. And I sincerely believe that scouting has made me a much better teacher and instructor of the game, because I understand ability better, in terms of as a critical looker, and have some, some things that, some standards to hold people accountable to. Whereas as a coach, I thought I could fix every player. And as a scout, that that's not true, and so, when I started really understanding scouting, and scouting is one of those things, John, that it really takes you about 6, 8, 10 years to really figure out what you're doing. And the players that we're evaluating right now, we're really not going to know the truth of our reports for 2, 3, 4, 6 years, when these guys have cycled through some higher levels, and I get an idea of how accurate I was to that player. And scouting is that way. Nobody walks into scouting instantly talented. It takes a while to learn the formulas and the intricacies and the details of a player evaluation and projection. It's not just about getting the player right now. Scouting is about getting the player right in the future as well. And that's why it's so humbling, because you can be wrong a lot. Usually scouts turn in a lot of players they say are going to be major league players. And we all know that not everybody plays in the major leagues.
So obviously Don called you and asked you if you wanted to be part of this program. Did you have any expectations, or what were your expectations, if you had any, when he first visited with you about this opportunity?
Well, I have familiarity with Triple Crown through my children. I have 3 adult children now, but they participated in some Triple Crown events growing up. And so I always had an affinity that it was based in competition. And so I was, what I was expecting, I've seen. The events have been competitive. The kids come to play and they love to play. They're there to play and win games. They're not necessarily there to be seen, quote unquote. And so I've enjoyed that about what we've started in and what we're doing.
Great. Well, there's all kinds of changes in the game, and the big talk now obviously is about data collection and measurable tools. That's something that's done at every game, and there's all kinds of different opportunities for players to have those measurables taken, but from a standpoint of when you're scouting, what is it that you're looking for in a player, aside from the measurables? Obviously we know there's ways to find those things out, but what as a scout do you look for in a player? I look for guys that have a particular energy about them. It's been my experience that players that achieve, it's not just about size and talent, but there's an energy about them. And it presents itself in competition because
guys that are really good, it's been my impression that the game kind of happens around them, and so talented players and players that achieve, they kind of find their way into the middle of things every ball game. And so that's something that I'm looking for. I'm looking for a kid who comes out with a particular energy, like this matters to him. And one of the primary reasons why is, when you take on a college baseball season, a college baseball career, when you take on a professional baseball season and a professional career, I'm sure everybody listening is familiar with the word grind, and it is a grind, and so you have to have a great energy toward it, a great love for it. It has to be there every day. Now, us as professionals, we understand this. We have a passion about what we do, and it brings us in every day and allows us to do a good job, whatever we're doing. And there's a likelihood that that energy was being formed in us in our formative years and as we're getting older. And so that's just something I look for in particular. I like for guys that bring energy every game. And so here's something that is, a concern for me, is to see a guy play with great energy on a Friday and then not play with great energy on a Saturday, and then play with mediocre energy. I'm wondering, who is the player? Is it the guy that I saw on Friday? Is it the guy I saw on Saturday? Or is it the player I saw on Sunday? And the truth is that it's likely all three of them. That discipline and that passion and that energy hasn't been completely formed in them yet. And so then it becomes a matter of whether or not the player has the aptitude to grow his energy and passion and the ability to grind. It can be a learned thing, but it's best if it's organic.
Great. We're talking about the technology, how much, I don't know that it's changed the game, but for those that use the technology so much about with scouting or evaluating players and all that, what do you believe gets missed in players these days when there is such a movement to exit velo and spin rate and using all the different, the TrackMan, the Rapsodo? So what are the things that get missed?
So in just using the term exit velo, what's interesting is that hits come in every exit velo and outs come in every exit velo. And so I get the measurement of a player's talent or strength or bat speed, but those aren't necessarily the things that allow you to be successful. They are components of success, but they're not going to be the reasons that a player is successful. That's an internal thing. So, you asked about social media, and I see social media as something that is kind of image based and not substance based. And so there are people that put things out on social media or use data to attempt to tell a story about who a person is or who a player is. But there is no set of numbers that can tell the entire story of who a person is. None of us are the entirety. We're more than the entirety of the data that surrounds us. And to me, that's true scouting, is to be able to ascertain things that data cannot tell you.
That's a good point. Good point. You mentioned this. You mentioned the social media. From a standpoint of as a scout, as a professional, as a parent, even as a player, what are your thoughts about using social media?
Well, I just think that it's something that is a part of the process now, and there is some wisdom and there is some intelligence to social media, and just like anything else, too much of something can eventually be a bad thing. So finding the right way to advantage social media in the presentation of who you are is important, but if I'm experiencing someone through social media and then I have an opportunity to visit with that person in evaluation or in a conversation, and I find that the image of this player doesn't match up with the substance of this player. And so social media is here to stay, unless something replaces it. And so that ultimately is a good thing because it allows people to to process information quicker and to get information out there quicker about themselves or to access information quicker. And so there is a benefit of it, but it's not the reason, it's not the end all why a young person is going to achieve, and so I think this idea that whoever has the most social media as a player wins, I don't think that that's necessarily the way that things turn out. I think the game itself reveals who can play. And I think the truth reveals itself in time. And so when I write reports on players, when I look for players on social media, I want what I write to be true about that player. I try to avoid giving too much opinion. And I try to look at the player as what is true about this player? And what is it that the player needs to work on? What are their best abilities, which they need to refine to find their way to the best version of their future? And what are their greatest needs developmentally? So that they're aware of those things and can get to work on them. Now, one of the things I love about it is it gives me reps. So even at games, I like to take video of players. It helps me remember them. I get an opportunity to see the consistency of what they do. And so I really enjoy it as a means of research, but not necessarily it telling me who can play and who can't. And it's the same thing with statistics. It is information, but it may not necessarily tell you who's going to be successful. Statistics, particularly at the amateur level, can be misleading. And here's an example. Statistics are at the behest of the scorer. And so if the scorer is liberal, then the statistics are going to reflect what is true about that player. And so, there are some things about statistics that are just that. They're just statistics. It doesn't tell you the entire story about that player. And if I'm presenting a player to you, John, and I'm saying, hey, man, this guy is a guy we may want to invite to this event, and I put something in a report that, man, I think this guy's going to hit 1 million, and he comes to the event and he don't hit 15, you're going to wonder about my credibility. Wow, you said, but what I can say is, man, this guy was really impressive when I saw him play with the bat. I'm making a true statement, but I'm not guaranteeing anything in the future.
Sure.
Does that make sense?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Good.
It's always about how you phrase things in your words, in anything you do, you try not to, commit yourself in certain cases, especially when your credibility is on the line. And that's something we talked about when we started this journey, is making sure that, we're selecting kids that you guys believe, are projectable and, you believe have a future, because obviously, like you mentioned, you've missed on people, and missed good and missed bad. I didn't select the right guy, or I picked this guy and he didn't really turn out to be what I believed him to be. So, our greatest successes I believe, are through our errors and our mistakes. So
I've failed my way forward to this day.
Yes.
I want to talk about a word, if you don't mind. I want to talk about a word that you used. You use the word projection, and that's thrown around like a Frisbee in scouting.
Sure.
Man, this guy's projectable. Most of the time when a scout or an evaluator uses the word projectable, it has to do with the physical makeup of the player. Mm-hmm. So he's tall, long arms and legs, projectable body.
Sure.
But projection is really on the inside of a person. What is going to allow that person to improve and excel and perform? That is what we're trying to find out in projection. And it's easy to see physically, wow, that arm should project more fastball, and sometimes that's true, but it won't project more fastball if this guy doesn't go out and work.
Yeah.
Or that guy that I don't project, and what's inside of him that I haven't identified. And then all of a sudden, 5 years later, he's 10 mile an hour better. Did I miss on projection? So that's an interesting word to me. I get, we see a body and we think, oh man, that's projectable. But for me, projection is on the inside. That's why just about every guy I've turned in a report with you, I've taken a moment to try to have 60 seconds worth of conversation with them to see if I can ascertain something about them.
Interesting.
So that I can get a better idea about his projection.
Mm-hmm. Good. That's good info. Well, you obviously we have a big weekend coming up. Working with these. There's 26 players that'll be down in Arizona with you in Tucson this upcoming weekend. So we're excited about that. We're excited about having you involved. What's the message you hope to communicate to the players and the teams that you're going to be, working with this upcoming weekend?
To have fun, to work hard, to know that even though you see people chasing opportunity, that you have resources all around you, that when you engage and you show yourself prepared for opportunity, that opportunity will present itself. One of the things about exposure is that it can expose you. And if you and I went to the Academy Awards, and I wouldn't say you're a good looking dude, and I wouldn't say I'm a good looking dude, but we're cool. We got a little game. And so if we went to the Academy Awards and we walked on the red carpet in front of Denzel Washington and Brad Pitt, brother, no one's looking at us. And so it is with showcases. People aren't going there to look at every player. People don't go to the Academy Awards to see everyone. They go there to see the stars. And so there's a lot of nice players that are average or above average in the context of the player pool, thinking that someone is going to notice them when Brad Pitt and Denzel Washington are there. And so making sure you go somewhere where you can be noticed is really important. And so that's a message that I think I want these guys to understand. Like, hey, you're here. We like you. We want to help you with development. We want to help you with preparation for the next level. It's not about your exposure. You're already exposed. You're here. We've seen you. We've identified you, and we can help move the needle. Now, what are you willing to do on your own to access and start these resources working for you, instead of just throwing another $1,000 at some event and hoping that somebody notices you? You've already been noticed. Now get to work. And one of the cool things about our group is that there isn't any measure of the game that we don't have tentacles to. So if I see a kid and I think he's a big leaguer or a first round draft pick, there's scouting directors that I can call and say, dude, I saw a guy at this Triple Crown event and he can do it. Now, he may not agree with me, but he's going to go. He's going to go if Donnie sends him to a spot. He's going to go if Murph sends him to a spot. He's going to go if Bates sends him to a spot. So they already have what it is they're looking for. The question is, what are you going to do with it now? What are you going to do with this information? And that's the challenge that I want to put before them.
Powerful point, right? I mean, you grow up and as you get older to our age, and you realize that it's always good to know people, and have connections. And that's a little bit of what you're speaking to here now. If these players will have an opportunity because they do know you, and they will know the other scouts that are there. So now it's up to them to put the time in, the work in, and get to making stronger decisions. So
the projection is on the inside. Right. It's not everything that's happening to you out there. It's what's happening to you inside yourself.
Yeah.
And here's another thing that I do want to impress on these young people, and that is, stop seeking the approval of other people. Approve of yourself. Be good inside yourself. Stop waiting for somebody to tell you you're a player, and go become a player. And there seems to be a lot of this, is my kid any good? Is my kid any good? And you know what I tell parents, John? The answers to your questions are sleeping down the hallway from you. You know your son, you know if he's working, you know his character. And even though the entire thing hasn't come together yet, you know that your kid is capable, and you trust that. But there's a lot of people looking to validate their kid when they know that the kid isn't of good character. He doesn't listen to them. He goes through the motions, or doesn't want to go to practice, or, would rather go to a water park with his friends than play a weekend tournament. And so, again, for parents, the questions that you have for me, the answer is across the hall. There's your answer right there. Who is your son? I had a player years ago named Jason Bates. He played for the Rockies, had a really nice career. And I had him when he was 16, and his father thought that he was a great player. And I remember telling one of the other coaches, Jason is a good player. He might be a pretty good old junior college player one day. And lo and behold, a couple of years later, he was at Cypress College, and he had gotten better. And so I went to watch him play with the same coach, one of the things that I do with players I train is I go watch them play. I'm not in a building with someone giving them information and not seeing how it works inside live ammunition. For coaches that are just teaching kids and sending them, no, I think that you need to see how your information is working. So I see Jason Bates play at Cypress College, and he had gotten better. And I was like, wow, Jason might make it to AA. No, that's not true. I thought, Jason's going to be a pretty good little Division II player. But lo and behold, he goes to the University of Arizona. And so I go see him play when he comes into town against USC. And I'm so proud of my guy. This guy batted seventh for me. And his father thought he was all of it. And here he is at U of A. And I'm like, oh my goodness. Jason's going to go out and make it to AA. Good for him. 8 years of service time later, I learned my lesson. Sometimes a parent knows their kid so well that they already know. They saw him tie his shoes for the first time. They saw him learn how to walk, ride a bike. Parents know if their kids have it or not. They know.
Well,
or at least the ones that have that kid, they know. I had Nomar too. 16 years old, didn't even start for me. Was a utility player, would pitch in relief, play some left field, bat eighth or second, but he wasn't a guy. And I didn't see it. I told him this years later, dude, I didn't see who you were. But one day he showed me. We were playing a game in a regional and we were losing big. And I said to the pitching guy, I go, man, we got to get somebody in here. We're going to get run ruled and we got to figure out pitching for the rest of the event. It was the first game that we played. And in the meantime, the pitcher's loading the bases and we're losing 9-0 in the second or third inning. Run rules 10 by the fifth. And they got the bases loaded and nobody out. And Nomar says, he overhears me, he goes, I'll pitch, coach. And I go, get loose, quick. Go out to the mound, stall, bring in Nomar after about 8 throws on the side. He strikes the first 2 guys out. And then the next guy hits a pop-up. And it's not very high, but it's going to come down right on top of this cement lip by the dugout. And I look at the first baseman, and he don't want to catch it. Kind of shut it down. First rounder, 6th pick in the country. Big time player, Mark Newfield. And then I look at the catcher, and he's looking at Newfield because he don't want to run into him. Newfield was 6'5", 215, ripped. First round pick a year later. And then I look out on the mound, and here comes Nomar. Fly it. Bases loaded. We're a run away from a run rule. Head first dive, hits his head and his shoulder into the brick. And I'm thinking he's concussed, John. This dude was on the bench 15 minutes ago. And I roll him over, and he's writhing in pain. And I say to him, Nomar, are you okay? And he looks at me and he goes, we have to win this game, coach. He showed me what was inside of it. Never doubted him after that day. But I didn't see it right away. His father knew. His father knew his son had the goods. And he used to rib me like, man, I can't believe he's not batting first and playing short. Our shortstop was a 4th rounder out of high school. He was a dude, but he wasn't no more. Sometimes even coaches don't see it. But if you know that you can do something, nobody can keep you from it. And no other opinion will matter as much as yours. Other people's opinions matter. But I think that a lot of parents and players place those opinions over their own self-opinion and their own self-evaluation.
Well, that's important, and you kind of touched on it, and some of the other scouts have touched on it in some of the interviews. Is, you have to be honest with yourself. You got to be honest with your son, and honest with yourself. And if you can do that, then that helps with the process. Along with what you're saying here, it's all about the honesty part, and you're right. There's who would not know their son better than their parent. So
what is the game telling you about your son? Are you going and, oh, he's playing and he's batting seventh and he got one hit today in 2 games? Yeah, no, the game is telling you something, that he's just a solid player. He's just an average player now. But all of that can be changed by what is inside of you.
Sure. Well, you mentioned a couple things there, and this kind of leads to our last question. And you've touched a little bit on this all along the interview, but when you came into this, when Don asked you to do this, I told you guys all, hey, this is a first year program. This is a pilot program. So, and obviously you're giving me a bad name here because you got one of our competitors painted across your chest right there. So I'll probably have to take some abuse. But anyway,
wow.
So
sorry.
That's okay. I had to harass you. We got that kind of relationship.
You know what I'll tell you, John? He's not your competitor.
Okay.
Your competitor, or our competitor, is us. How
Sure.
good can we become? And who are we impacting? We can't save them all, but we do have a place for guys that we're looking out for. And so let's just be good with those guys. But whatever other entities are doing, I don't know that that's a good place for us to visit, keeping up with the Joneses. I just want to be good at what we do.
Sure. And that's something you and I talked about, right? Keeping up with what other groups do. And, that's how people choose events. Unfortunately, they're, hey, I play a little bit of this, I play a little bit of that. These guys do the X, these guys do Y, So, you have to know what's going on in the marketplace to try to figure out,
Yeah.
how can we compete, and this is how this program came about. And I discussed that with you guys about, hey, this is something different. So, and that lends to my question as far as what is it about this program that makes it different compared to, because I know you have worked for some of the other organizations running, scouting events. So what is it that makes this program and what we're trying to do different than some of the other things that you've done with other programming?
Well, it's in development. That's a primary thing. And I think that we need to remember that about ourselves, is that I look at this event as really important because I believe it's important for us to be right about these players. These are the first players that we've interacted with and asked, to partner with us and collaborate with us on this program. And so getting those players right, providing the appropriate advocacy for them and good information, I think that once we develop our culture, that will be unique. I have no aspiration to be like any of those other people. I want us to be exceptional and different, because people are experiencing those other things and they know that what's happening isn't really serving them, but they don't really have an alternative. It's just, it's like McDonald's. McDonald's used to be a really special treat until they put them on every corner. And then all of a sudden, rallies popped up and all these different burger places, but they're all just serving hamburgers. I want to serve something completely different to people. I want to serve truth. I want to serve encouragement. I want to serve development and watch how that impacts and affects young people. Because here's the thing, having done this a long time now, there's no wiggle for me in this. I know exactly what it takes for a guy to become a player. I'm as confident in that as my own name. And so when I see young people appropriating these other events, knowing that it's not serving them, it's just a big thing. I hope instead of getting wide, I'd like to go deep with young people, because if we can go deep, it'll get wide. But if we're just on the surface, something that looks, but it's not impacting young people and their families the way that we want it to, then we're just like them. And I don't want to be like them. I want to be like us.
Sure. Good point. Because it's the same thing I talk about, is trying to do something special, try to do something different, something that will make us unique and do something that nobody else is doing. So I appreciate your words on that. So, well, that's all I got. I don't know if you have anything else you'd like to share. Otherwise, I appreciate your time. I'm excited to see you guys work this weekend.
I do want to say to you, I really appreciate what you've done, and this taking a chance on us like you have. It's not lost on me. And I also want to encourage anyone that listens to this, that to be patient and to continue to move forward, because it's not as complex as they're making it seem. And at the end of the day, we just want kids that love the game and love playing, that aren't beholden to some achievement level, to love this game and enjoy this game. I try to tell young people all the time, it's not about making the major leagues. It's about making it to your major leagues. If your major leagues is varsity baseball, hallelujah. There's no shame in that. I actually think varsity athletics is an amazing accomplishment in life. When you think about all the kids that start out on all those fields and in all those gymnasiums and all of these things, and the number of players on a varsity roster in any sport, man, that is perseverance. That is impressive. And so if you never play a day of college baseball, maybe coaching is for you. Maybe umpiring is for you. There's a lot of different ways that you can love the game besides playing it.
Well, I appreciate it. Thank you very much again for your time. Lots of good thoughts, and we look forward to seeing you again this weekend. And I know the players that are participating this weekend with the teams and the camp are going to get a lot out of everything that all of you guys have to offer. So thanks a lot again, Rodney. So
bless you, John.
All right, man. Take care. Safe travels.